Welcome to this explainer. Every single time you grab takeout, sit down at a restaurant, or buy prepared food, you're actually putting your trust in a massive hidden system. Today, we're going to shine a giant spotlight on that exact system. We're going to break down the highly technical, absolutely crucial mechanics of commercial food safety into a clear, actionable journey. We'll explore exactly how professional kitchens identify safe food sources, evaluate their deliveries, and rigorously manage the entire process of preparing, cooking, packing, and transporting food to ensure it stays completely safe for consumption. Okay, let's just jump right in with two numbers, 5 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. These numbers, they are the ultimate villain in our story today. This isn't just some random temperature range. It is an ever-present ticking clock in the culinary world. Literally everything a food service professional does is designed to minimize the time food spends between these two specific temperatures. In the industry, we call this specific range the temperature danger zone. And man, danger is definitely the right word here. When food sits in this range, pathogenic bacteria don't just survive, they multiply incredibly rapidly. The golden rule tied to this zone is all about time. Any potentially hazardous food left in this temperature range for 4 hours or more must be discarded immediately. There's no saving it, no cooking the bacteria out of it at that point. It is just gone. To outsmart these bacteria, we're going to follow the physical journey of food through a commercial operation. Here's our roadmap. 1. Safe sources and deliveries. 2. Proper storage and prep. 3. Cooking and holding safely. 4. Cooling and reheating. And finally, 5. Packaging and transporting. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Safe Sources and Deliveries, starting at the loading dock. This is ground zero for food safety. Your very first line of defense is identifying and securing food from safe, legally approved sources to ensure product quality. I mean, think about it. If the source itself is compromised, the whole shebang is at risk. Looking at the total flow of food from purchasing all the way down to serving, contamination or bacterial growth can occur at literally any step along the way. That is exactly why professional kitchens need highly specific standard operating procedures from the absolute second those ingredients arrive at the back door. So, evaluating the criteria for accepting a delivery is absolutely crucial. You can't just casually sign an invoice and shove the boxes in the back. Your staff needs to inspect deliveries using their senses, rejecting anything that has a weird color, feels sticky or slimy, or just smells off. But senses aren't enough. Calibrated thermometers are mandatory. Meat and seafood, they must be verified at 5 degrees Celsius or colder. Hot foods arriving from a vendor must be 57 degrees Celsius or hotter. If a delivery vehicle arrives dirty or outside these strict limits, no questions asked, the delivery must be rejected. Moving right along to Section 2, proper storage and prep, or as I like to call it, outsmarting the bacteria. Once you've safely accepted that delivery, the food goes straight into storage and we start prep. And outsmarting bacteria here requires some really strategic placement to prevent cross-contamination. It's like a giant puzzle. You can't just chuck things into the fridge wherever there's space. There is a very strict hierarchy based on cooking temperatures and the risk of raw gisses. Prepared and ready-to-eat foods always go on the top shelf. Why? Well, because gravity is our enemy if raw meats are stored above them. Notice that raw poultry is at the absolute bottom. This ensures that its highly dangerous raw juices can literally never drip onto the fresh salads, cooked items, or whole cuts of beef stored above it. Now, when it's finally time to prep those safely stored ingredients, thawing frozen food presents a massive risk. Actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but freezing prevents bacteria from growing. It does not kill them. So leaving a chicken on the counter at room temperature, that is an open invitation for food poisoning. Instead, you have to strictly use one of these 4 acceptable methods. In the fridge, under potable running water that's 21 degrees or colder, in a microwave if you're cooking it immediately, or directly as part of the cooking process itself. This keeps the food's time in the danger zone to an absolute minimum. Which brings us to Section 3, cooking and holding safely, hitting those targets. Next up are the stoves and the hotlines. This is where we actively fight back using heat. But not all heat requirements are created equal. Since we're dealing with different types of pathogens, you've got to understand that they have different susceptibilities to heat. To effectively kill the bacteria on poultry, you have to hit an internal temperature of 74 degrees Celsius. Ground meats need 68 degrees, while commercially packaged vegetables only need 57 degrees. Food service professionals must use calibrated thermometers in the thickest part of the food to make sure every specific protein hits its exact target. Once that food is cooked to perfection or properly prepared cold, the battle shifts to holding. You literally can't not just leave cooked food sitting out on a counter. You must hold hot food safely above 60 degrees Celsius using steam tables or hot carts, and hold cold foods securely below 5 degrees Celsius in chilled units. The whole goal here is to completely avoid slipping back into that 5 to 60 degree danger zone we talked about at the very beginning.
But what happens if, say, something goes wrong? Maybe a fridge loses power or a tray of food gets left on a prep table during a crazy dinner rush and nobody actually knows how long it's been sitting there. Well, you have to follow an absolute non-negotiable golden rule. In professional food safety, there is zero room for guesswork. If you lose track of the time and temperature logs, the food goes straight in the trash. When in doubt, throw it out. Let's look at Section 4, cooling and reheating. Basically, racing the clock. A lot of times, food isn't served immediately, right? Maybe it's batch cooked for later. When that happens, we enter the cooling and reheating phase. And this is quite literally a race against the clock. You can't just put a giant boiling hot pot of soup directly into a refrigerator. It won't cool down fast enough, and worse, it'll raise the temperature of everything else in that fridge. Instead, professionals use the FDA-recommended two-stage cooling method. First, you have to rapidly cool the hot food from 57 degrees down to 21 degrees within just 2 hours. This pushes it through the most dangerous, bacteria-friendly part of the danger zone as fast as humanly possible. Then you get an additional 4 hours to bring it down to a safe 5 degrees or lower. So that's 6 hours total, strictly monitored. And finally, Section 5, packaging and transporting, keeping things safely on the move. So many operations today do more than just serve food on site. They cater, they deliver, they supply satellite locations, and we have to make sure all our rigorous temperature control isn't completely undone when packaging and transporting this food. The guidelines here are incredibly strict. Packaging isn't just some convenient box for transport. It's a vital protective shield. These materials have to be entirely non-toxic, they must act as a barrier against moisture and gases, and crucially, they cannot migrate any packaging chemicals into the food itself. Plus, all that packaging must be stored in sanitary conditions so we aren't accidentally introducing contaminants at the very last step. And when that carefully packaged food gets loaded into a delivery vehicle from a central kitchen, guess what? The temperature rules travel right along with it. Vehicles have to maintain those strict boundaries we keep talking about, 60 degrees or higher for hot foods, 5 degrees or below for cold. When the food finally arrives at the satellite location or the catering event, the receiving employees must immediately check the temperatures again. If the food wandered into the danger zone during transport, it's game over. It cannot be served. So we've traced the entire flow of food, from the loading dock through the highly specific hierarchy of the walk-in fridge, past the targeted temperatures of the stove, and out into those transport vehicles. Now that you truly understand the intense, continuous time and temperature controls required to safely manage the commercial flow of food, I want to leave you with this thought. How does your own home kitchen stack up? Are you inadvertently leaving groceries in the danger zone, or maybe thawing meat on the counter? Mastering these principles isn't just for the pros. It's the absolute key to keeping everyone safe, everywhere. Food for thought.